4 million years ago on the planet Earth, two brothers started watching Transformers media, and now they are going to make it your problem. Hi, I'm Hayden.
And I'm Frankie.
And on this podcast, we're going to go through and discuss every single episode of every Transformers cartoon ever.
Well, we might die first.
I was about to say,
especially since they keep making Transformers.
They keep putting them out.
Unlike Bionicle, this will never end.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, I was actually just looking at like, oh yeah, what's the most recent one and stuff, and it's like, it's Cyberverse, right? And then forgot that Earthspark had existed.
Right.
And I was like,
and those ones on Netflix.
Yeah. It's like there's so many. We'll get to them.
We'll get to them eventually. Today, we are continuing with the Generation 1 cartoon, Episode 7, Fire in the Sky, Episode 8, S.O.S. Dinobots,
Wow.
Episode 9, Fire on the Mountain,
Wow.
Episode 10, War of the Dinobots.
Wow.
Released in 1984, I think.
Yeah. Or ish.
Late 1984. That's actually one of my notes at the on the first episode, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
These 4 episodes focus on the introduction, loss, and reintroduction of Skyfire and the 5 Dinobots. One might say we are exploring Planes, Dinosaurs, and Automobiles arc.
Or the new Toys arc.
Yeah, basically.
But if you think about it, every episode of Transformers is the new Toys arc.
Right. Well, I mean, there's some episodes where they just use characters that we already know.
Right.
Yeah, it's not like the Marvel comics.
That's filler.
It's not like the Marvel comics where, like, they come out, the episodes come out, like, on a weekly basis, but the Marvel comics come out, like, once a month. So, in that time span, there's, like, 10 new toys. So, every single comic is introducing new characters, and it's nuts!
It's just like, hey, get attached to this person. It's like, I can't. I'm already trying to get attached to the past 15 people that you threw at me.
And now they're dead!
Oh.
Thanks, cosmically powered Starscream. I just bought all those toys! Anyway,
Transformers has a habit of that, where it's just like, remember these people that you know and love? Yeah, I love them. I grew up with them. They're like friends and family to me. Well, they're dead now. Oh, but I got you a new one. It's like, oh, that just make it better.
And Transformers killing kids, traumatizing kids since 1986. Anyway.
Oh, yes. But we're back, and with new and improved. We're in our Transmetal phase.
No, that's Beast Wars.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later. But we are upgrading once again. Hang in there, folks. This is only episode 3. We're gonna get the hang of this eventually.
We'll structure it out as we go.
Yeah. By the end of season 1, we'll know what we're doing. Exactly. And then we'll start throwing in guests in season 2, and everything's gonna go off the rails again. All right. With these episodes, we're gonna be adding segments to the end of the show, where we focus on a few smaller details and enjoy the wild world of TF Wiki. You'll see when we get there. We are also streamlining our Meg segment.
Our Meg segment. We have a whole section dedicated to just Megatron appreciation.
Oh, thank you. I was thinking Family Guy, and I was like, no, this is not a Family Guy podcast.
I really need. There's an edit.
Are we gonna
of that?
Are we gonna have to watch episodes of shows like Simpsons and Family Guy where they reference Transformers?
No.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Anyway. Yeah, so our main segment is streamlined by meshing our commentary for each episode with our recaps for the episodes. And with that, let's get started before I mess up more lines.
We're getting there. We're so close.
Hey, this is good. We are already breaking down stiffness.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we're only in episode 3.
See,
some people take a whole season to break down their stiffness.
Our whole podcast is just a rubbery ball of rubber.
It helps that we're brothers and grew up together.
We are bros. Quite possibly BroBots.
Wow. All right. So,
Fire in the Sky.
Fire in the Sky. What an episode.
I think this one we rewatched like the most, or what? This was in the list of the ones that we would rewatch like the most, more often than not. Yeah, it was kind of like in there. There's like maybe, I don't know, 15 episodes that we just consistently revisited for whatever reason.
Yeah. The next episode is definitely one, but we'll get to that. We'll talk about our nostalgia for that episode when we get to it.
Yeah.
So, Fire in the Sky. We open with the Autobots base covered in snow, and the Autobots have a snowball fight.
It's kind of fun, but at the same time, oh my goodness, it is riddled with snow puns.
So many puns. You could say it's snow fair.
It's not like it's not spaced out at all.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
are all crammed.
You have no time. So whenever I see snow in a show that usually doesn't have snow, my first instinct is to ask if this is a Christmas episode. And indeed, according to the pamphlet that came with my box set of DVDs. Yeah, I still use DVDs.
He's the collector.
I'm the old curmudgeon. I'm Cup. It did come out on December 8th. Or cool. It first aired on December 8th.
I do like to think of it as just like the inexplicable snow episode.
Yeah. Well, it is because the Autobots base is in a desert, right? You know, I mean, they're like supposed to be in Mount St. Helens, but it's in a desert. Most of the show is in a desert.
But it's interesting that the first instinct of the Autobots when it's, you know, astronomically unusual weather, their first instinct is to let's have a snowball fight and play.
Yes.
You even have that with like Spike.
And Spike even comments on it.
Yeah, he's like, I can't believe we're having a snowball fight in the middle of the desert. And then smash cut to pan away from the Teletrans screen to Optimus, and he's like, it doesn't feel right. Something dangerous.
It could be dangerous. I guess, yeah. And then Gears is just immediately, well, obviously it's the Decepticons.
It's like, I think the Decepticons did it.
But I do love that the Transformers are always willing to, and we'll see this a lot in G1 especially, the Transformers are always willing to learn human sports and stuff, or at least the Autobots. They're always interested in human culture and human sports. It's not likely that snow falls on Cybertron, so this is a new experience to them.
Well, it's kind of implied in later episodes and also previous episodes that Cybertron doesn't have an atmosphere.
Yeah.
And
which brings up the question, how did Chip breathe on Cybertron?
Yeah.
And how are humans going to breathe on Cybertron in future episodes?
Yeah. If you kind of look at these four, there's like, I don't know, all four of them have chunks of like Autobots being invested and interested in human culture.
Yes.
In some way.
Yeah.
With, snow and dinosaurs and everything like that.
Yeah, and Incan, kind of.
Well, even the Decepticons too.
Oh, yeah,
the legends.
Yeah, and that's an interesting, schism between the Autobots and Decepticons is that the Autobots are interested in learning just the average, everyday human things that they do. You know, like, a snowball fight? That sounds fun. Let's do that.
Right.
You know? And then Megatron is only interested in human culture as far as it can get him power. Right. You know, in season 2, we'll see him, kind of using politics and stuff like that, human television and radio and stuff like that. But in these episodes, it's
and
just
some characters are like more
disposed
to it than others as well, like Blaster and stuff like that.
Right.
He's invested in it to the point of like being an annoyance.
he's a like an Anglophile, but for Earth.
Yes.
What do you call it? An Earthophile or something. I don't know. Yeah.
So Optimus is this could be dangerous, and starts researching it with Teletran, and finds out that this is a global phenomenon of the Earth freezing over and entering some sort of new ice age, and it's like, what's like the scientifically plausible explanation for this? It is that the Decepticons are draining heat energy from the Earth's core, which not terribly inconceivable, but it's inconceivable that it would have any effect on the Earth's weather.
Well, I mean...
It would literally just make the core a little bit more cold.
Yeah, but the core is a molten core, and it does provide heat to the Earth.
Not in this universe. In this universe, the Earth's core is a big green energy shard of crystal that emerges in the Arctic Circle. It's like a big spike.
Yes, so the weather is caused by the Decepticons having discovered a crystal shaft to Earth's core and are using it to pump out the heat energy. And we'll see green crystals be a reoccurring theme throughout Generation 1.
Yeah, even within this slew of episodes.
Yeah, even in this slew of episodes.
And it's also funny that Starscream, when we cut to the Decepticons in the middle of, like, draining energy, he's like, oh yeah, draining energy from the Earth's core. It's simplicity itself.
Yeah.
It
raises the question... To me, it raises the question... If the Decepticons do this regularly to different planets, like, you know, we see in, say, like, Revenge of the Fallen and a lot of media after that, that there are organized groups of Transformers that go to planets to harvest energy in various ways, right? So I wonder if this is just a thing that happens in the G1 continuity, is that Transformers will go to planets and harvest core energy, right? You know, from crystal shafts, right? Because all planets have green crystal shafts going down to the Earth's core. Apparently.
Of course.
Of course.
It's simplicity itself.
It's simplicity itself. But that kind of is a little bit of foreshadowing for Starscream talking about his scientific side, if you think about it. True. You know, maybe this is Starscream's deal, you know? Yeah. This is why Starscream and Skyfire were
butts.
Maybe this is what they were doing, scouting planets that they could harvest the energy from the core.
Kind of calling back to, like, or not calling back, but, like, you see something similar to that play out with, like, Shockwave in the IDW comics.
Yes.
Where he's seeding planets with energy.
Seeding planets with energy.
So they can harvest it later.
Yeah.
But...
Oh, this is an interesting thing. You just made me think. In Beast Wars, the Energon on the planet, which also was seeded by the Vok, I believe.
Right.
But it shows up as crystals.
Yeah.
They're not green. But there could be a connection between the Earth's crystal core and these Energon crystals.
And the ruby crystals of Burma.
Hey, there you go. Yeah.
Crystals are important, it would seem.
Yeah. And have energy, apparently.
Yeah.
Which I can see how a crystal could focus, like, funnel energy through it.
Right.
I don't see...
Like a prism or something.
We're getting wildly off topic here.
But, like, even in the next couple episodes, we see one of the crystals... kind of acting in, like, a prism-esque way.
Yeah, with the weapon.
Except it's more of like a plug than anything else.
We'll get to that. I believe that the writers on these couple episodes must have been, like, passing notes, but, like, not the whole note, if that makes sense.
They are aggressively connected, but also wildly disconnected.
Right. They're trying to have continuity, but also, like... doing their own thing at the same time.
Which, from what I understand of it, on the production of the show, that was pretty much the case, where there was, like, the production Bible, but there was also, like, notes about different arcs between episodes, and depending on the studios involved, like, it wouldn't connect, or, you know, different things like that, where it's like, hey, what am I supposed to remember from the last episode and stuff, and it's like,
we haven't made that yet. Plus, like, this part of the season was all made after the first 3 episodes did really well. Right. So, yeah. But where are we?
So the Autobots decide to go to the Arctic Circle and investigate the source of all of this, where the Decepticons are. But as the Decepticons are tunneling to get to more of the crystal, we actually got a pretty funny scene with Skywarp and Rumble where they're just kind of just talking smack to each other. But Rumble accidentally causes a a cave-in, which reveals Skyfire, frozen in the ice, who's a huge transformer, huge by Transformer standards.
yeah, and is of an unknown classification, as Megatron says.
But the really, I think kind of the most interesting part of this episode is the backstory between him and Starscream.
Yes.
And that it gets revealed that Starscream knew him and that they were scientific colleagues.
Yeah.
And
it must be a small universe for them to have explored one planet and then, 4 million years later end up on the same planet.
Right.
Well, okay. How long was the war going? Because they explored Earth before the war started, right?
Right.
And then in the first episode, we pick up as the war is fizzling out. And then they crash on Earth, and it's 4 million years later that they reawaken. Right?
So we don't know how long the war had been going. It's always said as it's a war that was waged for millions of years.
Yes.
Which is incredible lengths of time. But the interesting thing with this is that this is the first time that the series has really alluded to pre-faction Cybertronian life.
Yeah.
Where most of the time, whenever they reference it, it's like Autobot kind, Decepticon kind.
Yeah.
But this is the first time they actually contextualize it as factions that didn't exist at one point.
And then that's immediately destroyed by when the Five Faces of Darkness gives their origin story.
It's just like, so they were, more like us than we would think, right? They're just people, and then they had factions and a war and stuff, right?
Yeah.
No.
They were built that way.
But at this point, it's kind of the first time that they've delved into the idea of Transformers living lives prior to warfare.
Right.
And the fact that Starscream, the sniveling, conniving traitor, was a scientist is kind of a hard swerve away from what we've seen of him. And we get really sensitive Starscream in this one.
Right, because when they're talking about Skyfire and Starscream is discussing their backstory, he says, I circled half the globe searching for him, or something like that. And the voice acting in that scene is so melancholy.
Yeah, it's
he actually misses his friend,
Yeah. Chris Latta manages to get a really, like you said, melancholic thing where it doesn't feel disingenuous.
Yeah. He really, they were friends, and he was concerned that he lost his friend, on that mission. And now seeing him all these years later, he's actually happy to see him again and concerned for his safety.
Right.
And Megatron even asks him about it.
Right. It's also interesting you mentioned that according to Megatron, he is a robot of unknown classification.
Yes.
And not necessarily a Transformer, even though he's basically a Transformer.
Right.
But curious distinction there. But I think it also leads into the Frankenstein-esque resurrection of him.
Yeah.
They're
just zapping him with
and he says, Starscream says, give him 50,000 volts.
Yeah.
And Soundwave has what looks like a news reporter video camera.
Yeah.
And just like that. And it doesn't work. And
into his knee. Why is his memory center in his knee? But then they watch his memories in his forehead television.
Yeah, we see
is he a junkie on or something?
Yeah. We see the inside of Skyfire's brain, and it's just a little
a little TV.
Not just a TV. It's like a tube TV.
But honestly, that is one of the best ways I've seen to justify a flashback sequence.
Right.
Because so often you'll see a flashback sequence where somebody's flashing back and then we just see it as part of the movie. Right. But then none of the other characters are seeing what's happening. Right?
Exactly.
Like in Lord of the Rings, Gandalf has this flashback, and then the funniest cut where he just cuts back and Frodo's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
You know, was I supposed to see that flashback? And Gandalf's like, oh, there's nothing.
Well,
but here they can actually watch his flashback.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, where they have him captured.
Yeah.
And he starts explaining like Galactus and his role as his herald. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, they decided, you know what? He's able to show like visuals, but in his abs.
Like a Teletubby?
He has TV abs.
Like a Teletubby.
He's a very buff Teletubby. But so we got like this little video of them like, you know, they were explorers, and interestingly, Megatron says it was shortly before our final falling out with the Autobots.
Implying that there were several.
Yeah, several falling out. Maybe, kind of alluding to maybe like Decepticons and Autobots as political parties before war factions.
And a ton of this is explored so much more in later Transformers media.
Right.
Especially the Transformers aligned continuity with like the... Exodus novel?
Yeah, Exodus, Exiles, and Retribution, I think, was the final
and
count of novels.
The Covenant of Primus.
Right. Yeah, there was so much depth added to like the and the War for Cybertron games as well. Like the just so much more added to like the political scheming. And
then of course in the IDW comics and a lot of media around that time.
Right. But I did like the detail that Starscream, when they were exploring, he was like, nah, let's back off of this planet. But Skyfire pushed on through. Mm-hmm. So shades of, even in his scientist career, Starscream was the cautious coward.
Right. I don't think he was like cautious. I think he was, I think he was cautious, not cowardly.
Right.
In that situation.
But
which honestly, a lot of his cowardice is over attribution. Throughout at least season 1, he's actually just cautious. He does actually take scientific turns here and there, and in early season 2,
right? Which
we'll get to that in a later episode. But he definitely is presented more cowardly later on,
right?
And that's where that trope really comes from.
They continue to revive Skyfire because the 50,000 volts into his knee doesn't work. So he says, then give him 1,000,000 volts, which we get some interesting magic hand technology in that it's not something that slides in and then reemerges as another tool. It's Soundwave's whole arm just warps into a big old tube and then just boom.
So is that Soundwave's own energy then?
I guess.
Or is he plugged in?
He's packing some mad power. Apparently.
He is a cassette player. Well, he runs on batteries.
He also, he carries around a bunch of other bots inside of him, so maybe he like uses that to recharge them.
That's why we don't see Buzzsaw until season 2. Is because he just used all of Buzzsaw's power to revive Skyfire.
Just sent Buzzsaw into a coma until season 2. But they get to revive him, and when he wakes up, the funniest thing to me is that Megatron is just completely straight up. He doesn't, like, in later things in this situation where, like, Megatron's trying to convince someone to join the Decepticons.
Yeah.
In later interpretations, he's always, like, super connivey and stuff. Even in, like, War for the Dinobots. Mm-hmm. But in this one, he's just, dude, we're getting enough energy so we can conquer the universe.
Yeah.
And Skyfire's like, okay.
Yeah. I think he's counting on Starscream's in with this guy.
Right.
You know?
Which Skyfire as a character is super cool.
Yeah. Because
one of the first things he asks Starscream when they like, you know, get reacquainted and stuff is, are you happy with this new life? Are you more happy being a warrior than a scientist? Yeah. And Starscream said, yeah. It's much more exciting.
We really see, he didn't like running experiments. He likes just shooting people. Yeah. Which we will see later in the show that he's just really been messed up by this war. You know, like I feel sorry for Starscream in this episode.
Right.
You know, like he used to have this life as a scientist, and then over millions of years of warfare have really just turned him into a monster. Yeah. You know?
Like he's kind of unrecognizable to Skyfire at this point because, you know, him asking him that and then Also, Starscream is just straight up with his intentions as well. He's like, yeah, and then once I betray Megatron,
yeah,
we'll be able to rule side by side, you and me, Skyfire, like that. And it's cool that he's inclusive in his plan.
Yeah.
He's like, I want you to rule alongside me.
Right.
It's not, it can only be me.
Right.
And Skyfire's also like, yeah, I'll help you get standing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, sure.
Yeah.
And
it is really interesting being able to get all these backstories, but it's funny that Skyfire feels so indebted to Starscream resurrecting him that he just skips millions of years of politics,
right?
Because there was no war when he went down, and now there's a war.
Yeah,
And
so he's a Captain America. He's a man at a time.
Yeah. Also, being frozen in ice, I wonder if he's a big jet, right? And he's frozen in ice. I wonder if there is any influence on the live action movies where Megatron was frozen in ice for years.
And then
Starscream had to try to resurrect him.
Right.
Yeah. So, with Skyfire having transferred to the Decepticon side, or I guess just picking that side, because he was coerced by his buddies.
He just kind of went with the flow, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, if you wake up, several million years later,
right,
and are just greeted by these people who are like, yeah, we're going to take over the universe,
and one of them is your friend.
Yeah, and one of them is your friend.
Okay,
what are you gonna do?
Right.
So when the Autobots arrive, they have a big battle, and for some reason the humans fall in the water. Good job, Spike. Hypothermia for you.
This whole sequence is really, really cool, honestly.
Yeah, because Skyfire immediately goes to save the humans from the battle. But they are imprisoned, and Starscream tells him to execute several Autobots that were spying on them. Skyfire says no and gets shot, left for dead, with the Autobot victims who were tricking Starscream with a hologram.
Yeah.
So let's just dissect this part of the episode.
Right.
Yeah.
It's honestly one of my favorites out of the whole season so far, because, one, Skyfire is a tank.
Yes. He's just huge.
He doesn't turn into a tank, but most of the Transformers come up to his waist.
Yes.
He's big.
Yeah.
Which I think mainly was because of the toy.
The toy is big.
Which, curiously, they couldn't use the name Jetfire for whatever reason, because it was part of, Diaclone, I think.
No, the toy is actually from Macross.
Oh, okay, that's right.
But they licensed it. It's the first non-Diaclone toy, I think, or one of the. Him and Shockwave are some of the first non-Diaclone toys to be licensed into the Transformers toy line.
Yeah.
Which might be why Megatron says he's a robot of unspecified classification.
Because he's from another show.
He's from a different, so they had to change, his toy, as sold, is just straight up the Macross Valkyrie fighter jet.
Right.
So in the show, they had to change his face, and he's a lot more blocky because the toy is a lot more streamlined. But his face is different, and also in the comics. In the comics, for some reason, he's called Jetfire, which is the name that stuck later on.
Yeah, most iterations of his character are Jetfire.
Yeah, but in the cartoon, he's called Skyfire.
Right.
I don't remember why.
Easy distinction between the two is Skyfire has a full face with kind of a fighter pilot head.
Yeah.
Jetfire usually has a more angular faceplate on him.
Yeah.
But the one of my favorite lines is when the Autobots are coming, he's kind of getting ready, and he's he spots them coming, and he says, "It is time to make the change from science to war."
Yeah,
I was
that's
that's so cool.
Oh, dang. Especially for somebody who's just woken up and is
right.
He just accepts this situation.
He literally gets tossed into a war and starts wrecking house too.
Yeah. They are all pinned down. Hound says that giant has us pinned down.
Right.
When Bumblebee or Cliffjumper says that we got to rescue Spike,
Yeah.
He's dying of hypothermia.
Right. But he...
I never addressed that, and it upsets me.
he's drowning in freezing water.
It bothers me so much when cartoons dunk humans into cold water and then don't expect them to have hypothermia.
They've just got so much adrenaline running through their veins that it just survives them until the hypothermia wears off.
I mean, Cliffjumper does shoot him with a defrost cycle, so we'll get to that.
Yeah. But when Spike falls into the thing and they're calling out for help, it draws him, and Skyfire just like completely ignores the rest of the battle.
Yeah.
There's a shot where
he's
walking
just wandering
away.
down the battlefield.
Yeah, and the Autobots are shooting at him as he goes.
Yeah.
And he's just completely ignoring them. Some of them are hitting him and he just doesn't register them. And just it's like, oh boy, here I go exploring.
You're right. So he picks up the humans and he just goes straight back to science, like, oh, Earthlings, hi, maybe we can talk, you know.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm not.
But
you're good.
he does say, oh, I'll protect you from the evil Autobots. So at first I thought, oh, Megatron didn't deceive him at all, you know.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, there is some deception, but you know, to Megatron's point of view, maybe the Autobots are evil. From
my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Right. But then immediately Spike and Sparkplug says, no, the Autobots aren't evil, the Decepticons are evil.
Yeah.
So, you know, just everybody's a bigot.
Yeah. We will get into that in later episodes, but the moral grayness between the lines is explored in these episodes.
Yeah, so so Skyfire takes him back to meet Megatron. He's like, no, we're not evil. You know?
Yeah, he's like, I'll take you to Megatron and show you, hey, we're the good guys.
Megatron's not the person you want to go to if you want to convince somebody the Decepticons aren't evil.
You beautiful, naive soul.
Right. So they get through. Also, I love Skyfire just looking through the cave. Yeah. Like, his head takes up the whole cave.
Skyfire takes
He changes size. So I know he's supposed to be big, but he changes size so much.
Right.
Like when they're trying to revive him, Starscream comes up to his chest or something, right?
Right.
Yeah, but here, he's the size of his head.
Yeah. But yeah, there's the great shot of him like peeking through the hole. Yeah. And he's just like, eh. And he like reaches through.
And Starscream shoots his hand.
Yeah.
He's like, bad.
Right. And then he's like he takes it away and he's like, I don't understand.
Right. Because Starscream just rolls them into prison and then melts bars that they could easily get through.
Right. Yeah, he like shoots the ice in the cave so that it melts and forms like ice bars. But there's easily like a mile of space that they can get through.
And I do think it's interesting in this scene. They do discuss kind of rank a little bit. I'm always interested whenever Autobots or Decepticons talk about rank and military procedure.
The structuring of...
Yeah. Because sometimes they just feel like a big disorganized family. You know? Both sides, really.
Yeah.
You know, or just a group of hooligans, you know?
Right.
And then there's other episodes where it really feels like they are a military presence, you know?
Yeah.
Like Jazz, who stood his guard post for so long that he was just completely covered in snow at the beginning of the episode. And Spike didn't realize it. He's just like,
ah! He's like, wow, cool snowman.
Yeah. Not snowman. Snowbot.
Snowbot.
Anyway. So, in this episode, we get to see Optimus without his trailer a couple of times, and he just kind of looks cute in vehicle mode.
It's a funny, like, even if you look at the truck in real life, it's just kind of funny looking without a trailer.
Right.
It's all cab and no truck.
Right. All right. So, the Autobots head into the caves, the ice caves, to try to find their human...
Spike and Sparkplug.
Yeah. But Gear stops and says, I've got a bad feeling about this, and then they fall into a trap, right?
Yeah.
But if he didn't stop, they wouldn't have fallen into that trap!
He says something
except for
like,
Ironhide.
I got a funny feeling in like my micro sensors or something that.
Yeah. Except for Ironhide, who, according to Hound, is carrying too much lead in his caboose.
Too much lead in his caboose! But yeah, they head into the caves, and... kind of like tunneling through there. They find Megatron and the Decepticons harvesting fuel and stuff from the core.
Well, I'll be reprogrammed with a rivet roller, says Ironhide. Yeah, but
Megatron's
Megatron
like, "That can be
immediately
arranged."
notices them spying on the Decepticons' operation.
Right.
And captures them. And then, meanwhile, Cliffjumper finds the humans and conveniently has a defrost cycle. He even says that it's convenient that I have a defrost cycle.
Yeah.
So, after much wandering around the caves and fighting Ravage, Jazz says, "We've been looking around here for astro minutes." How long is an astro minute that you need to comment on it?
Yeah.
Like
this one
it's
ends
like, we've been looking around for hours, you know, like that makes sense. Astro minutes? How long is an astro minute?
We've been looking around for minutes.
Oh my goodness. It's like when you go to Walmart and you're just like, we've been in here for minutes.
Yeah, well, I think it's in this episode, but I think in the few other ones, astro and then whatever interval of time seems to be fairly consistent.
Yeah, but also like longer than a human version.
Right.
Like astroseconds, because they mentioned astroseconds in a previous episode.
Yeah.
You know. I think it is longer than our human, which makes sense because Cybertron is a different size.
They waged a war for millions of years. Like,
right.
How do you measure that time?
Right. But Cybertron, we'll see later, is smaller than Earth.
True.
But yeah, so after astro minutes, they find the humans, and Cliffjumper conveniently has a defrost cycle on his blaster.
Exactly.
To get them out of there.
But the captured Autobots...
The captured Autobots, on the other hand, are sent to a firing line!
Yeah. Rewatching this, I was looking at it, I was like, oh yeah, and then they get captured, and then... Oh, that's a firing squad.
Yeah! So Starscream...
It's one man, but it's still a firing squad. They have them lined up on the crystal that is jutting out of the ground, the big green crystal.
Right.
Which... If you're extracting energy from that, and it's like, yeah, we'll just use it as a convenient wall and shoot at it.
Yeah. It's like, wouldn't your blast, like, maybe travel through it back down into the Earth's core, causing a chain reaction or something? Or at least mess up the energy production here.
Right.
But Starscream orders Skyfire to shoot the Autobots, and he says no, so Starscream shoots him, and then shoots the Autobots.
So this is kind of
But they were faking their own death by Hound's holograms.
Right. I think this is a really good scene, because Skyfire, it's at, like, the crux of his loyalty.
Yeah.
And stuff, of where does his side, where does his allegiance
lie?
This
is the final straw where he's like, yeah, maybe these aren't the best people to be hanging out with.
Yeah, considering the fact that it's a brutal, like, basically a war crime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah.
But he tries to intervene and then gets... He's more of just reluctant to do it.
Yeah,
and then Starscream turns on him.
No. Yeah. And then Ratchet fixes Skyfire, who switches sides and sacrifices himself in the final battle, burying himself and the crystal shaft under the ice, healing the Earth. They give him a heartfelt farewell until they don't. So that's about the end of the episode, so let's dissect that section.
Right.
Starscream really has been messed up by the war compared to Skyfire, who just woke up.
He's sadistic.
Yeah, he's just straight up sadistic at this point. And like I said, this is the point where Skyfire is like, maybe I shouldn't be hanging out with these people.
Right.
But we just saw that Starscream shot Skyfire and he fell over, right? But the hologram shows that the Autobots have been utterly destroyed. They're in shambles, right? Which, once again, we get the classic exploded into commercial break.
Yes.
Which happens a lot in this show.
It's like, are they dead?
Yeah. So, like, did Starscream really think his blast was that powerful? And he just wanders off and leaves Skyfire.
He just cackles for a bit, and then he's like, sweet! And then he's like, yeah, that's good enough.
Yeah. So while Ratchet is fixing... So Hound, like, turns off his hologram, and Skyfire is like, oh, good, you're not you're not dead. And then Ratchet starts fixing him. And Cliffjumper, as always, as we'll see in later episodes, is suspicious.
Yeah.
Why fix a Decepticon?
I don't trust him.
Yeah. Then Laserbeak is spying on them and reports to Megatron that the Autobots survived.
Right. Which leads to one of the greatest chunks of animation in the show is Megatron softly twirling Energon Q, pondering probably how he's going to conquer the rest of the universe, gets notified by Laserbeak that the Autobots are still alive, and chucks it at Starscream, who's in the room. And there's this very, very distinct bonk sound effect that happens. And it doesn't even really, like, clobber him or anything like that. It just kind of knocks his head back, and it's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
And,
like when you get a shoe thrown at you.
Right. And he's just like, you idiot, they're still alive. Which, yeah, it's kind of idiotic, because Hound's holograms at this point have basically hard carried the Autobots.
Yeah.
So you should probably prioritize taking him out first before anybody else.
Yeah, I do find it interesting that the Autobots and Decepticons have been at war for so long that they know each other by name and what their powers are. Because Starscream says, oh, it must have been Hound's holograms.
Right.
They tricked me!
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, duh. He was right there. Shouldn't you... Yeah.
I'm not mad that they tricked me. I'm mad that it worked.
Starscream's not a coward. He just gets high on himself sometimes.
Yes. Arrogance.
So then Megatron is just like immediately, well, let's fight. And so we get the battle music, and the Autobots and the Decepticons go into combat.
Yeah. Couple interesting little highlights of this fight is that, one, Optimus brings, he says, time for some reinforcements, and just whips his trailer around and has a little turret in there.
Yeah.
And I love it. That's the reinforcement.
I love it.
Okay.
I do love whenever we get to see what Optimus is carrying around in that trailer, because otherwise he's just carrying a trailer for no reason.
And another good question, is this a roller situation where it's like may or may not be sentient, possibly a pet?
I believe the Operation Bay and turret thing in his trailer can detach, in the toy, detach and attach to Roller. So that might just be Roller with some guns.
Roller battle mode.
Right. He looks different, but, Roller battle mode.
Yeah. A fun little thing is Optimus and Megatron have little knockdown drag out.
With
the
crystal swords. And
right.
As
they
Megatron
break off
says,
chunks of
interesting choice of weapon, Optimus.
Right. It feels like they kind of followed that thread up in the movie where they're like going at it with melee weapons and stuff.
And it also kind of harkens back to when they were using the battle axe and the Morning Star in the second episode.
Yeah, which is unfortunate that they never bring those back.
Those are such iconic weapons for only having ever been used once.
They almost always get included in any sort of like Optimus versus Megatron like pack-in sort of thing.
And like comics and games and stuff will use
one episode.
One episode, yep.
But it's got good choreography.
I really like how they play into the fact that they're robots with like Megatron turning his waist all the way around so he can do a spin attack.
Right.
And then Optimus just spinning his wrist like a helicopter blade.
They fight like robots with the advantage that robots would have.
And that's not something we see enough in Transformers. We see a lot of, like you say, the magic hand. Is it the magic hand?
Yeah, magic hand slide technology.
Hand slide technology, where they'll just come out with a random weapon out of their wrist.
Buzzsaw of the day.
Yeah, exactly. But we don't see enough of stuff where they just like turn their whole body around,
Yeah.
Once in a while we'll see it like a half transform that helps them, but
Right.
Just before this battle, Optimus is micromanaging his team. He's just like, hey, you over there, look out. I know it's supposed to be helpful because he is actually like, look out behind you, you know, but it just sounds like micromanaging.
Right. But he's leading.
It's supposed to be him leading. Yeah. They tried.
So the kid watching the show with his Optimus Prime toy can look at the tech spec info card and it's like, that's what it says on the card.
Yep.
But
Brave leader of the Dinobots.
Skyfire makes his appearance, having been fully revitalized.
Yeah, and
into
Megatron
battle.
thinks that for some reason he's still on their side.
Right. He's
After
like,
he just got shot.
yeah, he's like, oh, sweet. Skyfire's here. We'll be good.
Megatron is so used to abusing his troops that he forgets that people who aren't the in crowd aren't used to that.
Right. So it's like, Skyfire, take him out. And Skyfire is like, I don't take orders from you. And he rips off the Decepticon badge and then just holds.
He just has an Autobot badge on hand.
Right.
Maybe Ratchet gave it to him.
True.
Right?
But
and I love the little shine around
yeah,
the
there's like a
Autobot
little prismatic shine around
Right.
it, and then the ba-ba-ba-ba, like that as he puts it on, and he's like, I'm an Autobot now.
Yeah, and note that the Decepticons insignia is basically made out of paper.
Yeah.
It's a sticker that he rips
it off as...
It just rips.
Yeah, and it just fragments.
Right.
But the
Which
Autobot
I know they
is
use
like
that effect for like breaking metal sometimes, but like
Right.
it's paper.
It's
some on the nose like symbolism.
Decepticons are cheap. They just have an iron-on badge.
Right. The Autobots have an
have
actual metallic.
It's like a sheriff badge.
Right. I love it.
But then he oh my gosh, he just throws Megatron.
He literally just throws Megatron.
Right.
And then
a couple of Decepticons try to go at him. Reflector, all three of them,
yeah,
for whatever reason, decide, all right, this guy's tall. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to stand cheerleader pyramid style and charge at him. And he just kind of swats them away. And they all fall over. And it's like, that was an excellent plan.
Yeah, and then a great just like payoff to the whole episode. It's Starscream versus Skyfire.
Right.
You know,
and they just kind of dogfight in the sky.
Yeah. And but it begs the question, why doesn't Transform... And Spike even says, he should try to land! But apparently he can't transform again to land. I'm guessing maybe he's still frozen.
I think he's still frozen, and he's also like was near to death, and him so like pushing through to fight. He just couldn't keep it up.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting that they just introduced this character, and then he sacrifices himself and is presumed dead, and they even have a funeral.
Right, but he shoots the snow to cover up the crystal, which I guess solves the crisis.
Right, because they're just like, well, I guess the Earth will go back to normal now.
Right.
Because that crystal got covered up by some snow.
Yay.
But it is actually kind of a sad funeral, you know?
Yeah, there's some cool visual where, like, the thing is covered up, but it's still glowing, and there's, like, kind of a prismatic glow, like, Aurora Borealis sort of look coming from the snow. And also the Aurora Borealis up above, which we also got a fun... it's kind of a callback to the beginning of the episode where they get to the Arctic Circle, and Spike is like, "Look, Prime, it's the Aurora Borealis, the Northern Lights." And he says, "Indeed, very pleasing to my optic sensors."
I love lines like that. They're so, like, you know, Grandpa Optimus.
Yeah. Uncle Optimus.
Papa Optimus.
Papa
Prime.
Optimus Prime.
Papa Prime.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think my wife was even actually a little sorry for Skyfire when he got buried, because it is kind of a sad thing.
It's a big sad.
And then they just completely screw that ending over with bringing him back, and this is why I think that Fire on the Mountain should come directly after Fire in the Sky.
Right.
Also, I love that the episodes are named after the character Skyfire, because he's a central character.
Yeah.
But
because he turns the tide.
In both episodes. Yeah. And I like that he doesn't just show up in these two episodes. He does show up in later episodes. Right. But it's always irked me that they're like, oh, poor Skyfire, I guess we'll go home. Also, they just drove all the way there.
Yeah.
You know? But we'll address this when we get to that episode.
Right. But ultimately, I think for Skyfire, he's such a likable character that him coming back, I would far rather him be in the show than just die.
Yeah. I agree.
Because that was like...
I just wish that they would have been like, well, we could dig him out.
Right.
Because that's what they do later.
Just like, we'll save him.
Right. Like, don't worry, Spike. We'll dig him out.
Yeah, it's just kind of
But it does
fake tragedy.
It does... I will say, though, it does make the episode feel more complete.
Yes.
By having him quote unquote die at the end
it's
of it.
it's the circle of circle of Skyfire.
It does really make for a complete episode.
Yeah,
right?
because he was found in the ice, and then by the end of the episode, he's back in the ice.
I cannot imagine what it's like watching it in syndication, though, because it's both the beginning and the end of Skyfire, and then you might see him in a totally different episode. It's like, wait, where does this go in the timeline?
How is he back?
Right? Like, how's he back? Or, like, you know, if you're watching something from season 2, he shows up a little bit in season 2.
Yeah.
It's just like, say you watch an episode with him. Like, say you watch this Insecticon or the Ultimate Doom episode where he features first, and then you watch this episode.
Yeah, it's like, oh, he's dead now.
Yeah, no. You can assume that he's dead now, but you can't figure out, like, why is he just now being resurrected from the ice?
Right.
Like, wasn't he just there last episode?
Oh, that's the kind of wild dichotomy between syndication and video on demand.
Yes.
Where nowadays we can just find that continuity.
Right.
But back in the day when this was airing,
yeah,
you had to be there.
Right. And it's like in the next episode with him, like, if you missed the first episode with him, the next episode with him is like, wait, they just knew this guy was in the ice?
Right. But it is cool that they were stuck to their guns with the continuity and stuff. But
so anyway, it makes for a very nice self-contained episode.
Right.
But with continuity bringing him back, and once again, I'd much prefer him to be in the show than not.
Yeah.
But it's just very irksome to me.
The unfortunate thing with Skyfire as a character, too, is that he plays such a unique role in that he's a powerhouse. He's the Autobots'
first flying character.
First flying.
Well, I mean, the Autobots can fly in robot mode
Limited.
in episode 1.
Right.
And then they need rocket packs in episode 3. And then some of them can fly some of the time in the episode. But this guy is actually big enough, as we'll see later, to transport Autobots around.
Right. Which is a role that has shown up again in other shows.
Yes.
Where it's the one Autobot who's like a really big jet or plane or some kind of like intercontinental aerial transport.
Right. Until they introduce space bridges as just something that they have on demand.
Right.
They didn't need them.
But he plays that kind of niche, but it also gets filled in by other people who get introduced later on.
Like Omega Supreme.
Supreme, Broadsides, a couple others that they don't really get expanded on, but they just kind of fill that niche.
Right.
And so it kind of meant that Skyfire kind of went by the wayside, which was unfortunate, but he's still like just a really cool character. And I think that's why we revisited this episode so much, was because it's so self-contained. It touches a lot on like the nature of the war itself.
Yes.
And it's also just a fun episode.
Yeah, it is.
And it feels very
It is
complete.
pretty well written episode. A lot of the episodes in season 1 are pretty well written.
Yeah.
I would say. They hold together within themselves, if not the greater continuity.
Right.
There's a lot of silliness in them.
Right.
There's a lot of just goofy Transformer stuff, you know,
but
scientific gobbledygook.
Yeah, I think season 2 really settles into like an episode of the week type of thing.
Yeah.
But the early season 1 tried at least to go a step above, I think.
One more question.
Yeah.
Do you prefer the name Skyfire or Jetfire?
I like both because they give a different connotation to the character. So in later iterations of the character where he's referred to as Jetfire, he's an Aussie.
Yeah.
And he's
Jetfire for me will forever be Transformers Unicron trilogy Jetfire.
Right.
The G1 Jetfire is Skyfire.
Right.
You know?
Which he's kind of making a slight comeback in like recent comics and stuff.
I feel like they've blended the two.
Right.
Because they've got
there was like
pre-war he is the scientist, and post and during the war he's the Aussie.
Right. It depends on what type of character you want to go for, but if it's Renegade Pilot, I always say go Jetfire.
Yeah.
If it's closer to contemplative scientist, gentle giant, then Skyfire for sure.
Right. And with that, I think we should go ahead and take a short break before we start the next episode. All right, welcome back. We're going to start talking about episode 8, S.O.S. Dinobots, which for you and me is a rather nostalgic episode.
This is the one that started it all for us.
No, it is not.
It's close to it.
Yeah, it's pretty close. See, the first 2 episodes we ever watched of Transformers anything were at someone else's house, and we'll talk about them when we get to those episodes. But this was the 3rd episode we ever watched.
Yeah.
Because we rented a VHS from a Blockbuster.
Yeah.
That was this episode and a couple episodes from season 2 that had the Dinobots in it.
Right. It was like a Dinobot montage collection or something like that.
I think it was called The Best of the Dinobots or something like that.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it was called like Megatron's Plan or something like that, which made not much sense.
Interesting.
Anyway. But yeah, so we rented that. So we're like 7 episodes into Transformers, and then we rent the movie from Blockbuster.
A great start.
A great start to what would be a profitable career.
Yeah.
It's been no profit at all. We've lost so much money buying Transformer toys.
In my entire career as a Transformers fan, going back to these ones definitely unlocked that not even really nostalgia factor, just sort of like, wow, this is what we watched.
Yeah. Oh, and then that was at the same time that Energon was releasing, so I had a DVD with a couple episodes from Energon also.
Yeah. We were current and also old school.
Yeah, at the same time. And then on Hasbro's old website, you could watch edited versions of G1, Beast Wars, and Cybertron.
Right.
That was like a year or 2 later.
Yeah, we kind of wound up like hopping back and forth.
Yeah, so we actually got a pretty good, in our introductory years to Transformers, we got a pretty good overview of the franchise. Right. And then the live action movie came out.
There we go.
And it was all downhill from that. No, I'm kidding.
First one was good.
Yeah, most of it is.
For what it is.
Most of the first one is good. But we're not here to talk about that. Today, we are talking about S.O.S. Dinobots. When the Autobots detect tremors in the base, they discover a cave with dinosaur bones.
Yeah, the
Ironhide just immediately assumes it's Rumble.
Yeah. It's that little small dude.
Which, once again, what does he call him? A junk punk?
Yeah.
Junk punk Rumble. But he, once again... They've been at this for so long that they know what people on other factions' names and powers are.
Right. And it's interesting because this episode feels like it starts like in media res, where it's like in the middle of just the tremors
these tremors have been happening for a little while.
Right. Yeah. And then they figure out where it is, and
Ironhide also has a television on his chest, apparently, his windshield, because he uses his sonadar sensors to sniff them out.
Another great magic hand technology, except that it doesn't slide. It
comes out of his wrist.
It's close. It's honorary.
It's honorary, yeah.
But why Ironhide, out of all people, to have sonadar sensors? Not Sona... I think sonadar might
it's supposed to be sonar sensors, but because Peter Cullen is doing such a southern accent, it sounds like he's saying sonadar.
Right.
And in my headcanon, it is sonadar. Just some sort of technobabble.
I'm trying to see if...
yeah, go for it.
It's an actual thing. Because, like, sonar, radar.
Mm-hmm.
Sonador is an open source cloud platform for medical imaging, visualization, and research. Not quite, but
let's ask the TF Wiki. We'll go to that episode.
The sagacious, all-knowing, all-powerful TF Wiki.
TF Wiki is more knowledgeable and more sarcastic than Vector Sigma. It just says Ironhide sensors in the description in the synopsis. Let me see. Here it is. Ironhide is equipped with a sonadar sensor array that extends from his forearm, capable of penetrating solid rock. The findings of the sensor are displayed in the windshield on his chest, and there's a link to... Because TF Wiki has an enormous page with just all sorts of notes and stuff after the synopsis.
Way more than we could ever hope to achieve.
Sonodar has its own page on TF Wiki. Sonodar is a type of sonic-based sensing technology used by the Transformers. Ironhide has a built-in Sonodar sensor array built into his forearm, which extends blah 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 blah. Notes: while the dialogue script spells it Sondar, the original script spelling is Sonodar, which makes more sense as sono is Latin for sound.
Oh. Okay.
And the picture of Ironhide using it has a caption that says, "See how his pinky sticks out? That means he's classy."
He does have a pinky sticking out.
Yeah. There are no links to external sources about real-world Sonodar sensors, and TF Wiki usually has links like that.
So it's safe to assume that it's Transformer-specific.
Yeah, it is Transformer-specific. I believe you are correct in assuming that it is a mashup of sonar and radar.
Well, it made me think of GPR, the ground penetrating radar, where
you
shoot the ground and see what it gives you.
Yes. But he doesn't shoot the ground, which is odd because that's something that Transformers do quite a bit, where they run into a problem, they just shoot it.
Just gun it down. It'll figure itself out.
So, behind the wall, there is a cave with dinosaur bones in it, right? And they walk in, and somebody, I think it's Blue Streak, says, "Well, I'll be a Cybertronic Bolt Bat!" Which I absolutely love, getting references to the flora and fauna of Cybertron that we never see.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, are they all extinct in present time? Because whenever we go to Cybertron, we never see any sort of animals. Now, Transformers do turn into creatures.
Right. But
and those
Cybertronic
could be,
life.
Yeah, Cybertronic life, which I believe in Beast Machines we see the techno-organic Cybertron.
Yeah, and that's the one that we're not familiar with, like, very much.
Yeah,
so.
Only seen a couple episodes of that one.
Yeah, that'll be fun to
but,
get to.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
We got Cybertronic Bolt Bat. In the last episode,
we'll get to that in a few years.
we had it was cold enough to freeze.
No, that's in the next episode.
Oh, that's the next one. Okay.
Yeah. Spoilers.
Dang.
But I love that the Autobots are always willing to learn. We mentioned that in the previous episode. They love to learn new sports. And here they are very curious about the dinosaur bones.
Right.
And
which these bones are way bigger than anything a dinosaur.
Yeah,
they're very much
they are
80s,
huge. Like
80s paleontology.
Yeah, I mean, like they take Hound to the and we'll get to this to look at dinosaur bones and stuff. But the ones in the cave must be dragons.
Yeah,
which actually is kind of an interesting question about Beast Wars.
Instructions unclear. Accidentally made the Predacons.
Yeah, no. The in Beast Wars they go to the Ark, right?
Right.
Spoilers, by the way.
Time shenanigans.
Yeah. So maybe no, Megatron doesn't die there. That's right. They take him back to Cybertron, which is why Beast Machines happens. But anyway, I was gonna say Megatron's a dragon. Maybe that's him.
Who knows?
That would be so
but,
funny.
Like, the size of them, there's a shot of Spike walking next to one, and it's huge.
Yes.
It's like the early 1900s, like, Crystal Palace interpretations of iguanodons.
Yeah. Love it.
Just
I love it.
Big old lizard, like, drakes.
I love old school dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they're so scientifically inaccurate that they're basically fantasy creatures now.
Right.
And I love them.
So, they start figuring this out. That Spike kind of tells them a little bit about dinosaurs. And it's like, these were extinct creatures, and prompts Wheeljack and Ratchet to build robot dinosaurs. I believe the line is, it would be pretty useful to have some dinosaurs in the fight against the Decepticons.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
And they decided to build the 3 Dinobots, Grimlock, Slag, and Sludge. Some really good fan favorites.
Yes.
Of course, they go crazy, and they trash the base before being neutralized and put back into the cave.
Yeah, and the way that they get around to this,
is that they take Hound, which once again we get back into that sort of Spike and Hound being kind of buddies, and Hound being the original kid-friendly character.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like one of the perspective characters.
Right. So Spike takes Hound to a local museum where two 80s punks comment on him being heavy metal.
Wow, man, that's what I call heavy metal.
But anyway,
again, begging the question of what is the state of robots in disguise at this point? They're just walking through.
We know that at the end of the third episode, they've made alliances with all the world's governments.
Right.
So the Autobots are allowed to just walk around,
I guess.
And we see in season 2 that there's a lot more
like Transformers will go to concerts. The Autobots are kind of like local celebrities and stuff.
And I do kind of like that. And it's not something we really see again until Transformers Animated.
Yeah,
I feel like.
It's fun.
Yeah,
I do like it. It's just kind of funny.
It does go against the robots in disguise thing.
It's in the theme song for crying out loud.
Exactly. I think the disguise is just for the fight itself, not actually for blending in with the humans. Yeah. But anyway, the
Hound takes like 3D scans of the dinosaurs and makes like a whole holodeck, Star Trek holodeck style environment of dinosaurs in their natural habitat.
Yes.
And the ability of Hound's holograms is consistently something that's ridiculously overpowered.
Right. It is so useful in all these episodes.
Yeah, it has no limit.
Right. So this episode, along with the next couple episodes, really helps against what I had questioned about the previous episodes, is that Earth feels very vacant.
Right.
We actually see humans doing human things.
Civilization.
You got museums, you got punk rock people.
Right.
And people, little families on vacations to falls and stuff.
Yeah.
Which
it's cool to see.
It's not just industrial workers.
Yeah.
In barren landscapes anymore.
Life exists in this
world.
Life
exists on Earth, yeah. It's one of those small glimpses like that overpopulated town that we saw in... This is the second episode where there's a big traffic jam because the Decepticons made a power outage.
I think so, yeah.
Anyway.
It's cool to see, one Soundwave in his intelligence gathering, position.
Yeah.
Him actually doing that.
We'll get to that in a second. So, upon seeing the dinosaurs in the holograms, Wheeljack's immediate conclusion is, we should build some.
Yeah.
And Optimus agrees. He's like, that might be useful.
Right. It's interesting that it started out as an academic curiosity.
Yeah.
For the Autobots, where it was just like, let's learn more about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And then it immediately turns into a tactical move for the war.
Yeah.
And Wheeljack he's still kind of like, it'd be neat to build these and simulate the dinosaur as a transformer.
Right.
And robot dinosaurs might be useful, Optimus says. He never comments on whether it'll be... He doesn't say it'll be interesting. He says it'll be useful.
Right.
So he's focused on the practical side of it.
Right.
It's like, what can they do for us?
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And it starts a very interesting gray patterning with Optimus and the Dinobots that I'll bring up later as well. But
yeah, you've got some interesting notes on this.
Yeah. But he says, you have my permission to start. And they get a cool little montage of them building everything.
I think it's interesting that they have the ability... Well, I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility for them to build robots, because, they got, roller and stuff like that, but...
It does beg the question of what's the level of sentience here?
Right. They just kind of Frankenstein these things to life. And like the monster, Wheeljack builds them buff.
Right.
Well, Ratchet helps him too. They are larger than most of the Autobots,
right.
To which Blue Streak comments, "Great Cybertron.
Look at the size of those things. Great Cybertron. Holy Hectrodide."
You mimic that so well. I don't think we even need audio clips from the show.
Well, thank you.
But
yeah, they're not as big as Skyfire, where Skyfire is like a giant. But they are easily like most of the Autobots come up to around like their waist or their chest. Whereas with Skyfire, it was mostly like they came up to his waist or sometimes his knees.
Right.
So they're big, but they're not giant.
Yeah. Huffer just immediately starts berating Wheeljack.
I just think it's funny that they're like, yeah, we're gonna make robot versions of the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And then Huffer's like, you idiot, you buffoon. You didn't make dinosaurs, you made robot dinosaurs. And Wheeljack not even responding at all to it. He just kind of looks and he's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. But it's because he, presents them in robot mode, and then they all turn into dinosaur mode, and then blast some rubble.
Right.
I guess that's what they were going to be useful for, was clearing rubble.
Were they janitors? Are they supposed to
Maybe.
just be giant robot janitors that can just make rubble disappear?
Maybe that's why. Because Wheeljack says, of course we built them with simple brains, like real dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And it's like, why did you do that?
Right.
You made this thing.
Yeah.
This huge, powerful monster robot.
It's like,
why didn't you make them have common sense?
We gave the Roomba an AR-15.
So of course they immediately go haywire, trash the base, kill Teletran 1, which I believe this is the first time Teletran 1's been broken, which we'll see is a running theme in Wheeljack invention episodes.
Yeah. Well, it kind of supports the idea that Wheeljack is purely in it for the scientific side.
Yeah.
That he was like, this is simulation.
Yeah.
We are making a robot dinosaur. Dinosaurs were dumb.
Yeah.
So we're making them dumb.
But because I come from a planet where things transform, it's just natural for me to turn them into robots.
Right. And it could even be argued that maybe Optimus mandated, these... we're trying to make basically WMDs.
We're making robots in disguise, so, the metal dinosaur is not going to raise anybody's eyebrows, but the robot mode might.
Yeah. As long as we strap a rocket launcher and a few guns on it so we can just point it in the right direction when the time comes, then, yeah, sure, make whatever you want, Wheeljack.
Yeah. The Dinobots are the Autobots' version of napalm.
Yeah. But, yeah, them wrecking house... Also, another note about this episode, the animation, a lot of Japanese animation studios worked throughout Generation 1.
Yeah, especially in Season 1. In Season 2, they start farming it out to Korean studios.
Yes. But you can really tell in this one, there's a lot of specific shots, Ironhide Sonodar, for instance.
Right.
That look unreasonably good.
yeah, they're very
very 90s mecha anime-esque.
Right, even though this came out in the 80s.
Right.
They're very shaded.
Yes.
Is what it is.
Very shaded, very angular.
They're very angular.
But pretty cool.
It also creates some weird shots, like when Bumblebee is scurrying around and Ratchet tries to pick him up, and then he just puts his leg in front of Spike, and he's just in this weird pose, and his head's really tiny.
This dynamic pose where it's like,
right.
But he's just kneeling.
Right.
but yeah, good sequence of them going haywire, and
everybody gets a moment to get beat up.
Yeah. Just wrecking house.
But my question is, Trailbreaker. He mocks Ironhide, says, "You must be getting old, Ironhide. What you need is a force field." It's like, why didn't you just use that to begin with?
Yeah. Trailbreaker, and that also, for some reason, I always thought Trailbreaker was old, just because of the line work on his face.
Oh yeah, I see.
But I do like the concept of maybe early seeds of Trailbreaker being like, I'm the new improved deal. You better watch out, old timer.
Yeah. Get a little sass from Trailbreaker.
Yeah. But yes, this is the first instance of Teletran 1 being destroyed in some regard.
Poor Teletran 1 is like the Kenny of Transformers.
They killed Teletran!
Again! But then Ratchet just gets immediately to work like, oh no, we can't have this.
Yeah.
If only tech support was that good at companies.
Yeah. But again, another question about sentience. Like, is Teletran like Jarvis in the Iron Man movies, or it's like just really advanced AI? Because everyone seems to have a really strong reaction to Teletran getting taken out.
I think it's just because Teletran is so central to their function.
True. I mean, it'd be like if I lost the files to this episode.
No! Like, no! Grimlock, we needed that!
Oh no, not Teletran 1!
Right. I had a computer once that was called Teletran 3.
Yeah, you had the, it was,
it is a
like
the
IP, like the name of the computer.
No, it wasn't the IP address.
Or not the IP address,
that
but
was
like
just the name of the computer.
Right.
But the, yeah, I don't think that Teletran is sentient because it's definitely, it talks a lot more computer-like.
Yeah.
And computers in the 80s were kind of stuttery, so I think it's
was always the general...
It's just a supercomputer.
Yeah, the general audio oral
Although,
language of robot is
computer,
always the
yeah.
stuttered speech.
Yeah, although according to Chip, it is the greatest detective on Earth.
Well,
And you do
yeah.
need some form of ingenuity to be a detective.
True.
So
I think it's a Jarvis situation, just really good AI.
then again, they are in a cartoon, so gigantic leaps in logic are not unheard of for even the most computer of computers.
That's fair. I do like that you pointed out that Ratchet... the Dinobots are still on a rampage.
Yeah, it just gets...
And Ratchet's just like, I gotta fix this.
Yeah. But Bumblebee just, like, is just trying to distract Grimlock, I guess.
Yeah, which is so funny because Spike is like, you'll need help, and does not assist at all.
Yeah, he just makes...
just in the thing.
Yeah. So, Optimus shows a little bit of his Bayverse mentality, where he's just like, enough! Destroy the Dinobots!
I'm gonna kill them all.
It's like, the more I watch G1 and dissect it, the more I start to understand why Optimus is such a maniac in like the live action movies and the and in Armada and Energon, you know?
But again, kind of shows that he's purely focused on the practical.
Yes.
He's like, the weapon isn't working.
The Roomba's gone mad.
Yeah,
Smash it.
Shut it down.
Right.
In this episode, he really kind of takes the role of the general.
Yeah. He's
And-
much more militarist.
Yeah. It's literally like him and Wheeljack are the general and the scientist. He's like, I can assure you my designs will work. And then they go haywire. And he's like, I just need more time. And he's like, no.
Yeah. Which is an interesting dynamic for the good guys to have, because normally that's like a villain origin.
Yeah.
You know? Or a...
Norman Osborn and Doc Ock and Spectacular Spider-Man sort of thing.
If we ever finish Transformers, we should do that show.
Yeah.
Maybe for one of our specials.
Yes.
Anyway, back on topic. Wheeljack, who needs more time, pulls out the magnetic inducer.
Magnetic inducer can stop him.
So, which begs the question once again, why not do that first?
What's a magnetic inducer? Why does it stop them? Why not do it first?
Well, I think, like, you know how when you wave a magnet in front of a TV, it screws it
just
up?
scrambles
you know?
it. And it forces them to
just
go back into robot mode.
Which, we'll get to this episode way later. But I love that, like, Wheeljack, his inventions go haywire, and he has to use the magnetic inducer
on all of them.
on all of them to make them shut down. Starscream apparently is smarter than Wheeljack because he builds a turn-off switch into Bruticus.
And it's literally a switch, isn't it?
No, it's 3 buttons you have to shoot in sequence.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So you can do it from far away. It's brilliant.
My goodness.
Anyway, we'll get to that episode way later, but I just want to say, Wheeljack, take note.
It's
or
like,
maybe
please.
Starscream took note from this somehow.
True. But yeah, Wheeljack's like, okay, stop them.
But I think it's
like,
interesting
please
because...
don't shut them down. And Optimus is like, they're too dangerous.
Right.
And they set him back.
They just bury them in the cave!
What's so funny is that
But it's actually like a really dramatic shot of them all looking at Wheeljack.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, my poor creations.
Yeah, and it's wordless too. Like,
Yeah,
he doesn't ever
that's
say like,
really good
I'm so
wordless.
sorry.
It's It's simultaneously hilarious.
Yeah, but also
And
sad.
also, like, this really great wordless storytelling.
Right.
I love shots like that.
Because, like, it's his creator looking at his creations, knowing that this is the last time that he's going to see them.
Yeah.
And that it didn't work.
Yeah.
And then he just quietly walks out of frame.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, dang.
I love it. It's a great shot.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, yes, Megatron takes over a hydroelectric waterfall center. The Autobots show up to stop him, but get dropped into a river and readied for termination.
Yeah.
So let's dissect this part of the episode.
So, Soundwave investigates, and it's just a family on a bridge watching the waterfall, and at whatever reason, he inexplicably decides to explain hydroelectric power.
Yeah, well, he's explaining it to his kid. I assume that that's the dad and the mom and their kid, you know?
Yeah.
Because they did an episode like that, or a issue like that in the comics, I believe.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Except that I think that had the Insecticons and the Aerial Bots in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think sometimes 30s football helmet wearing dad is a credible source, Soundwave.
Exactly.
Even though he's right.
What's so funny is that they get back
it's
and
just hearsay.
Yeah, Soundwave tells Megatron about it, and Megatron is instantly like, oh, sick, this is going to give us enough energy to conquer the universe. It's
Yeah,
like,
even though...
you already knew about hydroelectric power from a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And didn't think it was going to give you enough... it was just going to get you enough to get off of planet Earth.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, this dam, solid. We're going to use this to
it's
conquer
not even
the
a
universe.
dam. It's just like a waterfall that somehow produces energy.
Right.
Here's a question. There are some shots of the Autobots' base from far away, and there is a waterfall in front of them. And I've always wondered if that waterfall has some sort of hydroelectric power source that the Autobots fuel their base with.
That could be.
And I'm sure, because we know that their volcano still has, like, lava in it.
Right.
Well, sometimes.
Occasionally.
They probably use that for energy as well.
Right.
Could this hydroelectric station be the one that's in front of the Autobot base, which would explain why they have Teletran 1 on speed dial?
Yeah, which is... I just crack up every time it's like, I'll call the Autobots.
Yeah, it's like calling Batman.
Yeah. It's the red phone in the wall.
Which reinforces the world governments being in league with the Autobots.
Right.
Which I think is a pretty neat idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just kind of funny that they just have them on speed dial.
Yeah. There's several times where, especially Chip is always like, I'll radio the Autobots or I'll call the Autobots and stuff.
Which makes a little more sense because he hangs out with them occasionally.
Yeah.
So the Decepticons invade the power station and shoot at the humans who are just like, no way, I give up.
Yeah. Skywarp is just like, you want to fight us, you germs? And they just run away. They're like, no way!
Yeah, Skywarp's always a jerk.
Yeah. I love his characterization as just like Agent of Chaos.
Jerk.
Just like, I'm just in it to be a bully.
Yeah. And so Megatron claims the land for Decepticon territory, which I think is another neat little
kind of
military
risk factions,
yeah.
like territory sort of thing. Put a little Decepticon flag on it.
Right, they should have had a Decepticon flag.
Spike and Hounds are
meanwhile like
they're like patrolling because
yeah.
Teletran is down.
Mm-hmm.
And Hound gets word of it and converts it into like holographic imaging.
Why does he need to see the hologram to know what's going on? If he's putting out the hologram, shouldn't he already know what's going on?
Yeah.
Because I assume that the hologram goes through his systems, right? Like that comes from his mind, correct? Unless the gun is what's making the hologram.
Maybe? Oh, I do.
Because he does shoot the T-Rex skeleton with his hologram gun and then uses the same gun to...
Right.
In a nice transition. I like that transition where he creates the hologram. But anyway.
But he, in the More Than Meets the Eye, which, again, it's... A lot of stuff changes from the pilot. Yeah. But, he literally waves his hand and conjures a whole airfield. So...
Yep. And there's another episode, I believe, where it comes out of the missile on his shoulder.
Right. It varies, but
everything varies in this show.
But he does mention that they are at the Great Falls.
So are they at the Niagara Falls?
Maybe.
Man, they drove a long way. Too bad they don't have a giant jet guy that could just take them there. Oh wait, you left them in the snow.
But it will come back on a second trip.
Yeah. So, anyway.
He'll be fine.
Optimus orders everybody to go to the Great Falls, except Bumblebee, because for some reason, Bumblebee is the best option to guard the headquarters.
Yeah.
The man who has literally written into his bio, the least likely to do the most damage.
Well, we need him to protect the base.
Yeah.
It's also, I think, one of the first times we've gotten a half transformation where he starts transforming and then just reverts back.
Yeah.
When I like says, no, guard here.
I like weird things like that because it reminds me of like transforming the toy.
Yeah.
You know, like getting stuck halfway through and be like, what?
Yeah. Where it's half transformed.
Yeah. Or like we used to do where we would half transform them and call it the Cybertronian mode. You remember that?
Discount Cybertronian mode.
Yeah. Anyway.
Another fun time interval has got to be Prime says he'll meet Hounds at the falls in 8,000 astroseconds.
Okay, how long is 8,000 astroseconds?
I would love to
How long does it take them to get there? You know, if it is the waterfall in front, maybe they can make it in 8,000 astroseconds, depending on how long 8,000 astroseconds are. But if it's Niagara Falls, oh my goodness!
I would love to start telling people that I'm going to meet them somewhere in seconds.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, I'll see you there in 1,500 seconds.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Okay.
Energon mattresses are back.
Energon mattresses are back. Last episode, they were still the rainbow color, but they were cubes.
Yeah.
I don't think we've actually seen Energon mattresses since... Which, for anybody just tuning in, the mattress is when they take a stack of cubes and squish them down.
Yeah.
I just call them a mattress. Yeah. I call them mattresses because that's what they look like.
Right.
They featured heavily in the first couple episodes and the first few episodes of the Space Bridge trilogy.
Yeah.
But they kind of lean back towards cubes in the past couple episodes, I think.
The question for me has always been, compressing them, is that just for storage, or does that, like, increase the energy that they have?
It is a good question.
I don't think there's an answer.
I don't think so either. I think it is mostly for storage.
Right. Which makes sense.
Makes
it's like
it
those
easier for
vac
them to
seal
carry.
bags where you stick the vacuum in it and suck all the air out.
Yes. Anyway, I love Energon mattresses, and I wish they would return, even though they're kind of silly looking.
All of the different variations of Energon throughout the series.
That's fascinating.
There's lots of different versions. Yeah. But
we might have to do a whole episode on just Energon.
Yeah. Mattresses have not made a return as of yet, as far as I'm aware.
I have not read all of IDW comics, and there's a lot of weird stuff in IDW comics, so that might be somewhere
not
in IDW
even like
comics.
Weird, it's just there's a lot of stuff.
There's some weird stuff.
There is some weird stuff in there.
But the new series, the new comic series, the Energon universe, I think could be a potential candidate for having mattresses.
Oh, they might be back in there. Let's go.
Anyway, I haven't even watched a lot of the newer series yet, so they might be in like Cyberverse or something. I don't know.
True that.
We'll see.
Or Earthspark.
Yeah.
But
so Starscream, he knows the episode. He's in an episodic 80s television show. He asks Megatron point blank, "What happens when the Autobots show up?"
Yeah. Not if.
And
when.
And Megatron says, "I got a plan.
I got a plan if they decide to interfere." And it's always been one of my favorite transitions is
and then
Megatron being sinister and then just hard cut to them with the full trumpet fanfare. And they get there.
So how come Bumblebee doesn't get to go, but Spike gets to go?
Yeah. We must endanger the human at all times.
So Hound calls it Magna Spectacular, which might be supposed to be Mega Spectacular, but Magna Spectacular.
Magna sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Blue Streak,
throwing some Latin in there.
Blue Streak in a
Savage
moments
burn.
in a moment of exquisite comedy gold. Not for the joke, he says, but for the after effects.
Yes.
He says maybe Hound's got glitch mites in his databanks again, and is like starts wheeze laughing.
Yeah.
And it just pans over to the other Autobots, and it's dead silent.
It's so good.
And he just like,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there's
yeah.
just nothing.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Also,
Nobody
glitch
reacts.
mites sounds terrifying.
That's like he's
It
got
sounds
lice
like
in his
having
brain.
lice in his brain. That sounds horrible. I don't like it. So Megatron's vague plan is to have his Decepticons just kind of hide and then jump out at the Autobots, to which Optimus boldly comes up with the daring plan of fight back. So
just fight. Just I don't know.
yeah, they just fight.
point the spiky end that way.
Yeah, they're just kind of flying around and they're fighting and stuff. And somebody Ironhide's to Rumble's savage burn of nice shooting if you're aiming for the sky. Ironhide just says, "Shut up and fight."
Oh, shut up and fight. And Blue Streak. This fight feels very shenanigans oriented.
Yes, yeah,
Because there's just random stuff
really
happening in the
Yeah.
background, but Blue Streak is like cheering something. He's like pumping his fist at
Yeah.
something and then gets hit in the back with
And then he's suddenly standing again.
yeah, and then he's standing again.
But apparently Megatron did actually have a plan, and that was to get the Autobots onto the edge of a cliff, which they were already on an edge of a cliff, and use the fusion cannon. Hey, that's what it's called in this toy bio.
That's the name of the cannon.
But anyway,
I think I mistakenly said he did this in More Than Meets the Eye at some point, but yeah, this is where we see like the true power of the fusion cannon
yeah, he
unleashed.
just plugs it into
Yeah.
the hydroelectric station.
But yeah, the concept of
we don't
Megatron,
even see where that cable is going.
right? Him like plugging himself into different power sources
Yes.
to like amp up different
like that.
aspects of it. That's pretty cool.
He is. It makes sense. It makes such sense that the villains, the leader, is just a living weapon.
Yeah.
I like that.
We see parts of that in later episodes where he like is just beefing himself up.
Yeah.
But yeah, he takes out like the whole cliff face.
And previous episodes, like with the antimatter.
Right, and also getting zapped by the generator.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I think it's pretty cool that you can take in energy and do a supercharge.
Right.
fast. So the Autobots fall into the river and get washed away because apparently they can't swim, despite having done it in episode 1.
It's the B plot to this episode feels kind of shenanigan oriented.
Yeah, it is. So meanwhile, when the Autobots hear about this, Wheeljack upgrades the Dinobots' brains and sends them to rescue the Autobots. They wreck house on the Decepticons, and Optimus grants them a place among the Autobots.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that part of the episode.
One thing is that B breaks orders and goes to find out what's happening and sees that they're drowning.
Yes.
And then heads back to base.
He says, "I hope Optimus doesn't get mad at me for disobeying his orders," to which Spike replies,
"He won't be anything if we don't get help."
I love
Spike
that
just
line.
freaking out.
I love that line. That's one of Spike's better lines.
And a weird detail that I think we brought this up before, but it never fails to crack me up is Bumblebee's pink upholstery.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, all of the upholstery and the interior design of his Volkswagen is pink.
Yeah.
Like,
and I don't know
not
if,
just a subtle pink, a vibrant neon pink.
and I don't know if that's just a package you could get with Volkswagens in the 80s, or if that was like a trend that people like to put in there, or if one of the artists or designers or something just decided that on a whim, or like based it on their own Volkswagen that had a pink interior, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you looking it up?
I am. There's a bunch of custom versions that have pink upholstery, but none that I can see. Well, there is the 57 Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
It's probably happened.
Anyway.
Bumblebee comes back to the base and tells him what's going on, and Ratchet's like, I can't get Teletran working. What's happening? And
Bumblebee says he may already be terminated.
He says it like super somber. He's like, he may already be terminated. Spike's immediate resort is like, maybe he just can't respond.
Yeah. They're either dead or he just can't respond.
Yeah.
But Starscream knows they keep coming back. I think Starscream asks Megatron, like, Starscream says, surely a little bath hasn't ended our Autobot problem. That's what it was. So Megatron just lines them up on another firing line.
Yeah.
Wheeljack just hits Teletran to make it work.
Just bonk.
Conveniently says that he's been working on new brains for the Dinobots. Which really makes sense, because I think Wheeljack is the type of character who would want to correct his mistake.
He is an inventor.
You saw how sad he was when they put him away.
Right.
You know?
So, yeah, but it's also really impressive that he just builds new brains.
Yeah.
Which really kind of raises a lot of questions about, like, how Transformers make more Transformers. Apparently, there are a lot of different ways you can make more Transformers. Like, in this case, they just build more Transformers.
Right.
Also, apparently, Wheeljack is behind on the science unless the Decepticons stole his notes on building new brains, because he builds them to be intentionally dumb, right? But also he builds them to be smarter the second time around.
It's like, I'll add DLC brains to this.
Yes. They end up being these kind of, like, you know, barbarian sort of characters or whatever, you know?
Right.
But then later on in the season, Megatron just builds new Constructicons in...
and they're, like, fully articulate.
They are practically fully functional. They're actually geniuses in some episodes.
Right.
Scrapper... A couple of them are kind of dumb.
Yeah, Scrapper is routinely, like, one of the most ingenious, like, clever Decepticons.
Right.
So he's like a tactician and a leader in his own right.
Right. But we also see...
Hook is, like, an artist, like a pretentious artist.
Right. Mixmaster is a mixologist.
Yeah. It's literally an alchemist.
Right. But anyway, it could be possible that they are not, according to that episode. Of course, we're shown later on that we're getting way off topic. We'll get to that in that episode.
But this is the first time that we hear the Dinobots, like, speak and be articulate. So
which is interesting.
It's kind of
coming into consciousness here.
Right. But it's told quite a few times later on that the Dinobots are more natural and more powerful in their dino forms than they are in their robot forms.
Right.
It doesn't really get explicitly said in this one, but you can kind of understand that they began life as dinosaurs.
Right.
Just dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And then they got upgraded into sentience and everything.
And as soon as they wake up into sentience, they're immediately given a mission.
Right.
So they're just like, maybe we should?
Yeah, Sludge's reaction is honestly very relatable to... We've had 2 episodes so far where somebody gets thrown in with no context.
It's interesting that we get to see that from the Decepticon side and then from the Autobot side.
Right. The Autobots...
And it's basically the same.
Yeah, there's not really a difference.
It's like, hey, you're here now, you work for us.
Right.
A
neat thing is
back
that...
into that morally gray area that you're talking about that the Autobots live in.
It's like, what else are you going to do when you've just been awakened into sentience and are given something, a mandate?
Right.
So what else are you going to do? They
don't know
follow it.
They don't know what else there is to do, so might as well follow the orders.
Yeah.
But for now, as Grimlock so wisely
planting the seeds.
Like, just in case there's something else out there that I might want to do, I might not follow your orders.
Right. It's like, we do as told. For now.
I love that. It's just planting the seeds for the next episode, really.
And
but
it's also interesting because Grimlock's head has a different design here than it does later.
The round head.
It's like very rounded. the kind of antenna that he has
They poke
are
out
like
further.
Yeah, they're angled and point
They're
outwards.
pointing outwards, whereas his other head design is more square and they point up.
Right.
Yeah.
Love the second head design way more than this one.
I
honestly.
actually really like this one.
I like it, but in comparison is when the second one shines.
So to me, there's two Grimlocks in the show. There is the aspirational leader Grimlock, right? He aspires to greatness. The blocky head fits him very well.
Yes.
Then there's the goofy Grimlock from season 3, and the round head fits him great.
It's wrinkle brain and smooth brain.
And then he gets the really wrinkly brain.
Yeah.
He gets that. That's a later episode. We'll get there.
It's a funny line where they're debating whether or not to wake the Dinobots.
Yes.
And Bumblebee says Optimus Prime decreed that the Dinobots...
Just kind of hinting at the autocracy. Okay. An autocratic government where there is one person in charge of everything, but it's not a kingship, right?
Right. Well,
I'm trying to blend the word Autobot with autocrat.
Decreed sounds like kingly or dictator sort of thing. And it's like,
Maybe the Bayverse isn't so far off. This is the only episode that Michael Bay watched.
The great thing about going back is realizing that the show isn't exactly the way that we remember it,
right?
And in good ways and in bad ways as well.
Yeah. So anyway, we're back to another firing squad where we have the Autobots lined up, chained up with these weird energon like
web shackles.
Like
Spider-Man whipped them with energon.
What they look like is like, you know, those like vine root things that grow on the side of trees.
Yeah,
the parasite,
banyan roots or vines as parasite or something like that.
Yeah. They kind of look like those.
It's interesting.
It is weird, interesting.
But
yikes, another firing squad in just 2 episodes. This time it really is like a whole bunch of people about to shoot them.
It isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice.
So apparently these Dinobots can fly in robot mode along with Wheeljack.
Right. Well, Wheeljack has quote-unquote wings.
Maybe he's using his magnetic inducement.
As a magnetic conductor.
But anyway, Sludge is super smart for just immediately recognizing that the Dinobots have the Autobot logo and the Autobots have the Autobot logo. And Wheeljack has said that they're in danger and the Autobots are clearly in danger. Right. Even if you don't know what a gun is yet.
It kind of does early work that gets expounded on in War. Is Sludge is loyal to a fault. And just because he doesn't really have that much else going on upstairs.
Yeah.
But he knows what he's about and he knows who he's loyal to.
Yeah.
And then Slag is just like, I don't care.
I just want to kill something. That's like good enough for now. Yeah. We'll apologize if we got it wrong. But yeah. So I love that Starscream needles Megatron like, you're supposed to know everything. What are those? And Megatron retorts, scrap metal once we finish with them.
Yeah.
And then Wheeljack retorts, speaking of scrap metal, try this on for a sec. It's a nice little line of dialogue.
A lot of quipping happening in this fight.
And then sometimes I think I know what Megatron says, but when he gets blasted by Wheeljack, for the longest time I've always just assumed that he says, a Roman he butter shell! My equilibrium destabilized!
He is not having a good time.
And basically what it is it's just he's dizzy.
Yeah.
A micro
inhibitor shells.
Is that what it is?
Micro inhibitor shells. My equilibrium centers are destabilized.
Yeah, I thought it was a Roman he butter shells.
Yeah.
Which I have no idea what that means.
There's another one in a later episode that always threw me as well.
Oh, Megatron tripped. I guess Starscream's in command now.
Yeah. It's every time this happens.
And the music's so dramatic too.
Yeah. Megatron he says, Megatron has fallen, I'm the leader now. Yeah. I guess he's taking it literally because Megatron just trips.
Yep. But these Dinobots are more like Dino tanks. They just take all this.
Yeah, they're Skyfire-esque, where Skyfire took a couple hits and like got taken out.
Yeah.
The Dinobots are almost invincible.
Yeah. In fact, in later episodes, they basically say that they're only weak in their robot modes.
Yeah, they're walking weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
And we see some great stuff.
Some more hijinks where we get some nice demonstrations of the new toys' powers and abilities and stuff, and just silly little character moments for the Decepticons to get beat up and thrashed by these robot dinosaurs.
Personal favorite's got to be the earthquake duel between Rumble and Sludge.
Yeah, because Rumble just starts rapping.
Yeah, it's like, if on Decepticon turf you happen to tumble, look out, robot, because here comes Rumble.
And the music is so dramatic in this whole sequence. It's great. It harkens back to classic dinosaur movies.
It feels like a stop motion.
Yeah, one of those stop motion dinosaurs, which you can do if you buy all the toys.
There you go.
And also, I think I mentioned it earlier, but just in case, and you can edit this out if I already mentioned it, but the hologram that Hound makes earlier is peak classic dinosaur art.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the volcanoes, the apocalyptic landscape, and the dinosaurs just fighting and stuff, you know?
Right.
And we'll get to that in War for the Dinobots too, but I won't talk about that too much. Anyway, so back to the fight. The earthquake duel where they just slam the ground and knock each other.
Rumble has, up until this point, been the master of earthquakes. So it's cool that the Autobots have a counter to that.
I love that.
Where it's just Sludge shows
when they do that.
His massive weight is enough to shatter the earth. And apparently shatter Rumble's arms off of their sockets.
Yeah.
And
then
another great one. Skywarp says, heat-seeking missiles seek heat.
Wow.
And shoots at the Dinobots. That don't work.
Just turn around and shoot him.
Yeah, they shoot him. Well, they shoot him, and then I can't remember if it's Skywarp or a different one, but him, one of the Seekers just flies into Grimlock's mouth.
Oh yeah, which will be used as inspiration for the season 2 theme song.
There you go.
Yeah. Let's see. It just flies into his mouth and just gets yeeted. Yeah. I love the scream he does too. He's just like, ah! And slams into Soundwave.
Yeah, the Decepticons are getting trashed by the Dinobots.
So Megatron gets back up and shoots, but he turns into gun mode, which is usually supposed to be more powerful. But it just kind of glances off of Wheeljack's leg.
It might be an animation error.
It might be an animation error. He might have been supposed to be hiding behind something. Or maybe he's got a force field we can't see. Yeah. I don't know.
So, Dinobots are distracting Decepticons. Wheeljack is like, I gotta get the other Autobots out of here.
Yeah, so he just picks up guns and starts shooting at it. So anyway, I started blasting.
It's like, he finds all of their guns, which apparently do specific things.
Yeah.
Not all of them are just guns.
Yeah,
a lot
it's
of
their
them,
special powers.
Yeah, like Null Ray with Starscream and a bunch of different stuff. Yeah, it's neat.
Yeah, and he knows all of his comrades' weapons, so he picks up...
Because he's the inventor. He probably made them.
Yeah, he probably made them. You're right.
And
but sideswipes flare gun to dry them off, and Blue Streak's bolts to energize them. So is Blue Streak just like overcharging people when he shoots them, or is he just like... Is he a support class? Is he healing people? Like giving them little buffs?
It is either a med gun.
Yeah.
Or it is an adrenaline bomb.
Yeah.
In that he just shoots people until they get so energized they explode.
Maybe that's why he's not shooting. He's a bard! Blue Streak's a bard! He talks his head off. He shouts at Decepticons, but doesn't actually help. And he energizes them with his bolts.
Blue Streak is a bard.
Yeah, confirms. He just doesn't play music, unlike Blaster and Jazz, who would fit bard better. Anyway.
I like this revelation.
Yeah, I like this too. Anyway.
It mostly fits.
So the Decepticons just get wrecked by the Dinobots, and Megatron flies off slowly.
I like
Optimus is utterly confused by everything that just happened.
Just like, what? Well, I like that... I just always thought it was hilarious that Megatron being beat up and all of the Decepticons jet off, and then he just kind of like slowly is like,
yeah, like he's really beat up. Yeah, and the sound is even different. The other guys are like, whoosh, and then he's like, it's so funny. I don't know if that's an animation error or on purpose, but I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Optimus gets up and he is so confused, and then Bumblebee and Spike show up, and Bumblebee and Wheeljack and Spike argue for not deactivating the Dinobots.
Also, like, don't get us in trouble.
It's kind of an interesting line. Optimus says, "Even the wisest of men and machines can be in error."
Sounds wise, but it's also weirdly sketch about the fact that he doesn't say, like, at this point the Dinobots have been shown to be sentient.
Yes.
And I would say in some capacity, but the amount of characterization they get is as much, if not more, than any other bot on the show.
Yeah.
And so then they wreck house, they go at it, and Optimus says that the Dinobots have proven themselves.
Yeah.
He doesn't say that they, like, oh, well, they have thoughts and feelings and everything like that.
Right, he doesn't...
They're just like us.
Yeah, because originally he says they have, that they might be useful.
Right.
And now he says they have proven their worth, because they weren't worth anything originally. That's why he put them back in the cave.
Yeah, this is the first time that he's seen them in action against the Decepticons. Only then is when he's like, we'll keep them around.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Yeah. He doesn't quite acknowledge their humanity yet.
Right.
Or their robotity. Or whatever.
It starts a characterization.
It
starts a characterization of Optimus as being utterly practical and focused on the war effort of like, we need resources, we need weapons, we need all this. He's just focused on the important, and kind of also plays off of the times where he's always paranoid whenever somebody says, like, you know, oh man, we don't have to worry about the Decepticons anymore. And he's like, I wish I could believe that, Spike. And all of those lines, it feels like it's building up to something.
Yeah. Which
in a few episodes we'll see play out. But yeah. Other than that, just like really great.
This is a fun episode.
Yeah, it's fun.
I love it. You know, it's nostalgic. It's fun. You know, maybe not the most.
It's robot dinosaurs.
There are a lot of contrivances in it, like Bumblebee just conveniently out of the way so that he can be there to pick up Spike, and
they hadn't left anybody else at the base before.
Yeah, you know, and just, you know, some sequences of events are kind of contrived, but overall it's just a fun episode.
Look, we get the Dinobots.
Yeah.
It's robot dinosaurs.
Any episode with the Dinobots is a fun episode.
Yeah, there's a reason why they've lasted so long.
Right, and they are, you know, like you're saying, we will see this arc continue all the way into, like, mid-season 2. And then I don't think they really...
And then they just kind of like, you know, the Dinobots
they're kind of in the background after that.
Right.
Maybe the most chummy Optimus is with the Dinobots is in the movie.
Yeah. True.
But even then, he's just using them as weapons.
Right.
It's an interesting thought. I hadn't.
It's depth that I don't know if it was intentionally supposed to be there, but
right.
It's
but
there.
It's
there for me.
Yeah. And with that, we will take a break and then come back for the next episode.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, we've been going a lot longer than I expected us to.
Yeah.
But we had a lot to say about these 2 episodes, and we've got even more to say about the next 2 episodes.
Right.
So
we will try to keep it brief.
Yeah, let's go ahead and split this into 2 episodes. We'll make this part 1, and part 2 we will cover Fire in the Sky and the War of the Dinobots.
Probably on a rewatch. Might be my new favorite episode.
Yeah, it was always one of your favorites to begin with. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting to that, and we will release this episode, the next episode, close to this episode, so that the continuity is there.
Yes.
And we'll do our segments at the end of that episode.
Right.
So until next time, I've been Frankie.
And I have at one point been Hayden.
And soon
we are the BroBots in disguise.
We're the BroBots in disguise. We'll see you next time as we resurrect Skyfire
and introduce 2 new Dinobots.
Absolutely. Roll out safely, and we'll see you all in the next one. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't realize Vector Sigma was a thing.
You know what Vector Sigma is?
No, I meant... Oh, did you
I'm
you just meant Vector Sigma as a thing.
The lore,
Okay.
the computer, the in-story computer